Hello, Project Runway fans. I'm Gold Derby editor Daniel Montgomery here with my fellow editor Susan Wloszczyna, and we are going to talk about the most recent episode of Project Runway, There Is Only One You. We are recording this a few days later than usual. Things are busy with Oscar season. Please forgive us. There Is Only One You was a challenge where it was kind of a relief and not a relief for the designers because they got to create whatever they wanted. Any kind of look, ball gown, swimsuit, whatever the heck came into their heads, but it had to be inspired by their personal heritage or background. And some had more trouble with that than others. So let's start right with that elimination of ShaVi Lewis, who had a really great idea about a look inspired by his great aunt who was light-skinned and could pass for white. So she was allowed to perform in the Cotton Club. And so he made a dress reminiscent of her. Well, it was supposed to be reminiscent of her, but he had trouble with the fabric. It was too sheer. He tried to layer it with muslin. It got all bunchy and unflattering, and it was a kind of a mess. What did you think about that dress and that elimination?
Well, Christian was right. There was one too many booties back there because it was very bumpy. He just picked the wrong fabric. I mean, it was beautiful fabric, but if he couldn't get the lining and then he tried to use muslin and just sewing it, just every stitch made it worse than before. And that's not what you want to see when you're going to be judged in a few moments. But I mean, overall, if he had picked something a little less demanding in the fabric choice, maybe it would have worked. I liked his idea very much. I mean, it would be, something she could wear on stage and that would be lovely, but no, not that because it was falling apart and I felt bad for him. He was a good guy and I think he's talented. I just think he couldn't, as they say on what Christian said on the after show, but it's basically he couldn't handle the time limits or the money limits of what he had. Because if you look at his clothing otherwise that he makes, they're beautiful, but he can do it, for 5 months if he wants to, or spend as much as he wants. So, that's part of the challenge of being on the show is you got to do it in the time given. So, yeah, but he's probably going to be okay.
Yeah. That's the difference I think for him, it was the difference between 2-day challenges and just a 1-day challenge. Just losing that extra day kind of threw him off. So, it's like he said on the runway that he thought he sort of disrespected the judges, which I thought was so sad because, of course, he didn't. Just not having a successful look is not disrespecting the judges. It's just a bad day.
He's humble. Yeah, and I like that. And he knows he's good, and that wasn't his best work. So. Yeah. That's what he felt. And that was very sincere, very nice to hear because, there's other people on the show, some whose names begin with S, that are not that way. And it gets them in trouble, even more deep trouble, I think, because they don't question themselves a little bit and stand back and say, maybe that's not the best idea to make this outfit and make models stitch the name of dead children.
Yeah. Begins with S and ends with Sergio Guadarrama. I will say, I didn't think the dress he made was bad. I mean, when the guest judge Fernando Garcia talked about it being kind of like it took the Latin influence and made it a little bit, he said comic booky, which I saw his point. It felt very kind of, it felt like a sort of a cartoon version of like a Latina outfit or dress. It felt very on the nose in a way that, so I thought it was a decent dress, but I thought Fernando had a point about that. And I think the bigger problems with the other judges said, it's like, that did not communicate your message at all.
Well, that's
just stitching the names into
right.
It would be one thing if, because he talked in the workroom, it's like, the white indicates purity and the red indicates blood, and those are such intense images but the way he constructed the dress did not communicate any of that at all. And so he just didn't seem to understand how symbolism works, because it just didn't, it was just a red and white dress. There was nothing in it to actually symbolize what he wanted it to symbolize.
Well, what made it worse was the funky folk art embroidery, because it just didn't jive with what he, you know, I don't know what else he would have done to salute, you know, make it a salute to these children who died, but it just was not going together very well. I, you know, needed to call it a mullet dress, and that's kind of what it was.
Yeah, that sounded about right. I didn't, that wasn't my favorite part of the dress, although I can see, like, yeah, just to have randomly having like the cutout in the front where it didn't go all the way around was just, yeah, that wasn't the most successful.
And also, you know, Brittany was all over this, but it wasn't a political message challenge. It was a personal challenge. And he, again, ignored, you know, what he should have been doing in this challenge. And he continually does that. And he's crying and all this stuff. And it's like, just calm down, because you didn't do the challenge.
In his defense, which is something that will not come out of my mouth very often, in Sergio's defense, I do think he did take his, like, he wanted to communicate his Mexican heritage to talk about something having to do with contemporary Latin American community. I could see that as a part of the Heritage Challenge. I could. If it had been translated effectively. And I think his political messaging is on point. I just, like, in terms of like where he stands on this particular issue, that is incredibly tragic that we have, and we need more attention on children dying at the border. But I just, you know, there was a look when Sergio started talking about his dress where Delvin just kind of gets this okay look on his face on the runway, and it was the perfect reaction shot, because Sergio's politics, and I'm putting that in quotes because his politics feel less like a personal passion of his, a personal conviction of his, than like he's marketing himself, he's branding himself. Like, he being a political designer is just what his brand is, and I don't see a lot of that conviction, especially when a few weeks ago he'll talk about how, like, oh, it's like, yeah, I don't dress young people because they can't afford me. And it's like, okay, Mr. Politics, now you care about, you know, poor children at the border, you know, when you don't like poor people, like, you know, you dismiss them as clients of yours. So I'm just like, do you actually care about politics, or is it just a good way to brand yourself?
But he also left the portion that he was selling on the hem to the very last minute. He should have made that stand out if he wanted that to work. And you know what would have worked if he just put the first initial of every child or something. You didn't have to write their full names or something. You could have found a way that looked better for the dress, but also carried your message. And it just, I mean, I could sew better or embroider better than that. So, you know, it was.
Well, he did have the model helping him. He didn't do all of that himself.
No.
People randomly coming in and stitching names. Speaking of which, that's actually a good way to segue into the winner of the challenge, because Chelsey Carter, who all sort of, you know, did this, you know, this varsity jacket dress thing that I thought was a great idea. It wasn't my favorite look, so it would have been my personal winner, though I really like Chelsey, so I'm, you know, happy for her that she won. Mm-hmm. But she also did like names and initials and stuff like that. But the way she incorporated it into the look, it was very clear, and by how that was personal and how it incorporated that leather jacket kind of theme in the same style. And you know, and so it was all, you know, you didn't need to know the meaning to get that look, but also it enhanced the look to know the meaning. Yeah. And so it really worked really well for that. What did you think about that winning look? It felt a little gimmicky to me, like, you know, I can see why the judges liked it, and I really like Chelsey, so I'm happy that she won the challenge. But
here's what saved it: if she made it really like a real varsity jacket. Instead, it looked more like a coat dress. And the long sleeves did the trick, and having it near, like knee length, it worked. And then the thing under it was fine, so, and you can buy that look. I think it was like $400 or something.
Wow.
The 19th Amendment. And that was on sale. For some reason, they put up like a higher price for these things, and then they cut them like it's on sale. And I'm like, you're just selling it now. How can it be on sale? But I kind of liked it. And you'd have to be young to get away with it. But I thought it at least expressed what she was trying to do was, her grandmothers or whatever going to college, being able to get education. And I thought that was great. So yeah, good for her. And somebody else won, not Victoria.
Yeah, I mean, it's, not for lack of trying, Victoria's been in the top 5 weeks in a row out of only 6 challenges there have been this season. And that's that's why I'll defend like Sergio's kind of heritage approach to that look, because Victoria didn't have one unless everyone in Moldova dresses like they're going to a formal event at Starfleet. Because that baby blue, I think that if that baby blue had been like a deeper color, like a deeper shade of blue, it would have looked like a very rich, dark jewel tone. Maybe it wouldn't have seemed so space alien-y, like Kristen Siriano said. And I liked parts of it. I liked sort of like the cutout with the fabric, and the way those pants fit was really good. So I thought it was cool in a lot of ways, and I thought it was very different from what she's done in past weeks, which I also appreciated. I don't know how the hell that was a top look, though. That should have been, for me, that would have been safe.
How the model's butt looked in it. That's the selling point.
Other people had nice
Maybe butts are very big in Moldova. I don't know.
Well, her model had a very small one, so that might.
But yeah, I'm glad Sergio is staying, though, because he's providing much fodder for comic relief, which now that Alan and Tyler are gone, that's in small demand now. So
yeah, they're getting rid of all the fun people. Even ShaVi, he wasn't like quite as as outgoing and like have that kind of personality as Alan and Tyler did. But even he felt sort of like he had his fun little kind of catty moments that they're catty without being mean spirited. And so they keep eliminating all the fun people off the show. And so like if they do get rid of Sergio, it's just going to be a show with a bunch of reasonably nice people and Delvin making well, not that Delvin is a bad person, but he seems very kind of grumpy at times and very, very to himself and introverted in a way that's doesn't necessarily make good TV. Although again, I don't come to reality TV for the drama, but I do like personalities. I do like to see personalities interacting.
Speaking of which, so this artist called Ashley Longshore is going to be the inspiration for next week's challenge, and she's kind of known as the female or feminist Andy Warhol. So a lot of pop artish kind of affectations to it and craziness and all that. Made me wish that Hester Sunshine was
yes.
I think she could outdo herself. But I think Victoria has some whimsy, something in her, and I think she'll do well. I don't know about everyone else. And Sergio, I can't wait to see what he makes, because it'll have nothing to do with the artist, probably. But we will see. I shouldn't be so mean so quickly, but I am. But
yeah, no. What he'll do is he'll take Ashley Longshore and he'll make a dress that's inspired by the assassination of General Soleimani of Iran or something. And it's like
but whimsical
will represent the death, and the red will be blood, and the white will be peace, and like it was like, oh, but again,
No,
we're getting ahead of it. He might be fantastic. I don't want to get ahead of myself and say that he won't be.
He's not going to. Okay, he's not someone who likes to pay homage to someone else. You know that. So we'll see what he does. Let's not write him totally off, because I do think he's talented. Just not this past week so much. It was too much. But it looks like it'll be fun. And then the lady herself, will be on the show. So I think she's worked with Christian at some point, making fabric together. But I'm going to write up something now and have a link to her site so people can be either excited or go, I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah, this will be one of those interesting ones where I actually wasn't like when they said, "Oh, it'll be the Ashley Longshore challenge," and I was like, "Who is that?" Because I don't like I'm not like as involved in that art world, and maybe people watching this video will be yelling at me in the comments saying, "You don't know Ashley Longshore?" It's like, no, I did not, and I do not, and so I'm looking forward to seeing her, and because like just Googling her, seeing just the bright color and boldness of her aesthetic is something that I'm excited to see from the designers, like and excited to see who can really do that well. Like you said of Victoria, I think Victoria tends to be bold when it comes to like shapes and construction as opposed to like color and bold, style like that. So
I think Jeffrey might do well too.
Yeah, Jeffrey seems like he might be someone who could do well with that. I think Brittany could do. Looking at just like the way she mixed patterns this week, Nancy, who I think Nancy's still kind of underrated by the judges. She's only had one low score, and this week her coat that like over those pants, like it was a great look, but that coat alone was just like made that in a day. That is fantastic.
But she's supposed to be doing Italian and look like. I mean, I don't know if she has Scottish ancestors too, but nothing screamed, Italiano, but it looked great.
Well, she was doing a background thing where she had like a suburban upbringing, so she's like, let me come up with something that's sort of like the fashion I wish I could have had, which I think is a reasonable interpretation of the challenge. Like if you didn't have that kind of very vivid cultural upbringing that felt very strong growing up, then kind of making an homage to something you kind of wish you could have had is a good way to go. Like,
that's good.
Yeah, it feels like something that Delvin should have thought of, when he struggled, because he's like, okay, I have Mexican heritage and I have Native American heritage, and he's trying to think about how to translate that. But I'm thinking the struggle to translate that would have been an interesting idea to pursue. Like if your existence is a melting pot and you don't know how to extract cultural meaning from that, that's an actually interesting inspiration to start from. And then the model would have been nude because you're just so confused you can't put clothes on her. That would have been a choice.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
There'd be a lot of blurred images right there. But now I want to ask you something because I didn't read I saw the original poll, but what do people who responded, did they think Victoria's been overrated or? The most of the people who voted our poll, we ran a poll asking, because Victoria has gotten 5 high scores in 6 weeks, almost the entire season at the top, including 1 challenge win. So we asked, is she really as good as the judges say she is, or is she totally overrated? And so the vast majority, I always have a middle option, like a moderate option where it says she should have gotten a couple of high scores but not that many. And that was the one that got the majority of the votes. They said she's good, she's not that good. Not very many people said no, she's totally overrated, she didn't deserve anything. And I kind of agree with that. There were a couple of weeks where I'm like, yeah, she really did something great there. But other weeks where I'm like, well, I mean, I like her, but the judges didn't need to put that one on top. This week, this was not a top look. At least she didn't do the same dress again. Yeah, that was she did, and I think that was her main inspiration. Is I gotta do something different because they're gonna ding me again.
And it was different, and it fit well. It was made well. It just wasn't overall successful. A lot of things that were good about it, but again, like Marquise had this really great another kind of gender non-conforming look that sort of it was so cool, and the judges seemed to love it when it came out. They're like, oh, he's winning the challenge, and he wasn't even in the top 3. And I was like, how did that not even happen?
Well, it's the judges. That's why. I blame the guy who went to Notre Dame, the judge, guest judge. He said, I like anything collegiate. Okay, good for you.
Yeah, if Sergio had just put like a letter jacket on top of that dress and just stitched the names of dead children onto that one instead, then that would have worked. He would have been on top.
No, it would be tasteless. And what he did was enough. So
yeah.
Anyway, well, it was a fun episode, though. It did challenge them. I mean, a lot, especially speaking to their mothers.
And it was so nice seeing Jaeyoung have a good week, because she had 1 week in the bottom, and I was like, if she lands at the bottom, even with something that's meh but not terrible, she's going home.
No, her jacket was beautiful.
She had a really great jacket. Yeah. I sort of agreed with the guest judge that the bottom wasn't quite as good. I thought the jacket was beautiful.
Pants would have been better, but she probably was getting ill and didn't want to do that much.
Yeah, and from the scenes for the next episode, it looks like
it's not going to be good.
She's gonna run, like, the show's gonna run out of their insurance budget by the end of the season just getting her medical attention. Well, I feel bad for her because, like, I like her so much and I don't want her, like, just be constantly sick, like, every week on the show.
But have they ever had a medical emergency and people had to leave? I don't think so. It's not like Survivor, but I don't know. I mean, things happen and people have to withdraw for whatever reason. But I'm not actually. I don't remember if they've had a medical elimination from the show. Well, we'll have to look into that if that's the way things. I hope it doesn't, because I do like her. So yeah.
Well, with that, thank you, Susan, for joining me, and thank you to everyone for watching. We will be back to discuss the next episode and give you, hopefully, a positive status report on Jaeyoung's health and everything Ashley Longshore. So thank you very much, and we'll see you then.